Based on the statistics of hierarchy analytic, people consume a total of 20,514 tons of coffee every year in Hong Kong. What are the benefits of drinking coffee? They are actually widely discussed on social media platforms. For example, certain chemicals in coffee can have a stimulatory effect about boosting physical performance, staying alert, losing weight, and lower the risk of cancer. However, brewing coffee produces plenty of waste from an environmental perspective.
The waste are termed as brewed or spent coffee grounds, and basically they're just a byproduct from the process of brewing coffee as the solid waste. Guess what? 2.1 billion tons of coffee grounds would end up in landfills every year globally, according to a peer review published in Journal of Cleaner Production. It is also stated that even in some developed countries like Australia, up to 98% of coffee grounds are sent to the landfill, while in Sydney, only 7% of coffee grounds are reused in agricultural applications such as fertilizers or warm food. Why don't we reuse it? In fact, there are significant benefits of reusing coffee grounds in agricultural applications.
According to a review article published in the Journal of Environmental Science and Pollution Research, the SCG contains plenty of nutrients such as nitrogen ranging from 1.2% to 2.3% and phosphorus at an average of 0.35%. Friends, you may learn that the SCG helps plants growth. For instance, those plants absorb water more efficiently. SCG can fertilize the plants to thrive because phosphorus plays a vital role in transferring the energy from sunlight to the seeds and stimulating fastest growth, according to the NSF Government Department of Primary Industry. As mentioned in another peer-reviewed article published in PLOS ONE, it is hypothesized that SCG can be organic fertilizers that contain rich nutrients to help yield more crops than is expected. Taking this journal article as an example, we have compared the lateral growth rate at 0% and 2.5% concentration of fresh SCG and the dry rate gain at 0% and 2.5% concentration as well. There are also rich nutrients, particularly nitrogen and phosphorus, mentioned in this journal article. Therefore, we are able to investigate how effectively this SCG boosts mum-bean growth by measuring the increase in centimeters. Utilizing coffee ground to fertilize plants in the home environment would not be subject to limited resources, as this does not require setting such as a laboratory or wormhole to keep track of the plant growth. They multiply when sufficient material like soil, coffee ground, and water are provided with great exposure to sunlight. Moreover, the mung-bean plants are organic and editable. Consequently, mung-bean are less exposed to harmful chemicals like pesticides that guarantee the food quantity we consume. A personal backyard garden or balcony may be required, as it could be more efficient to grow plants as much as possible. If not, you may need a barrister to keep them with coffee ground to fertilize the plants, and this could be a more practical way to recycle them, as you don't brew a cup of coffee at home.
In light of this, we decided to test if reusing coffee grounds at home would be feasible. We probed into the effectiveness of brewed coffee grounds in mung-bean plant growth by conducting an experiment. Thus, we prepared a control setup of the mung-beans planted with water compared to the experimental setup planted with the mixture of coffee grounds and water. First of all, 2 cups of soil were prepared and weighed 113 grams. Then we transferred them to 2 pots respectively. After flattening out the potting soil with a spoon, we added 10 mung beans to the pot and covered them with soil thoroughly. 100 ml of water was added evenly to both 2 pots. For the first 5 days, both 2 pots were planted with water only. For the next 10 days, only the experimental setup was planted with the mixture of 10 grams of coffee grounds and 100 ml of water in a proportion of 10 to 1.
Here are the results of plant height we measured over the past 10 days. The average height was obtained from total measurement of 7 seeds from each pot, because the rest of the mung beans failed to germinate. We could observe that 2 plants from control setup wheat and the stem cells lost its turgidity and no longer stabilized in the soil in the last 2 days of the experiment. At the beginning of our experiment, the control setup yielded a better result of height with an average of 15.07 cm on day 6, while the experimental setup yielded a shorter height of 12.87 cm on that day. However, the experimental setup eventually outperformed the control setup at day 13 by an average of 0.27 cm in height. The control setup grew 7.39 cm compared to the experimental setup, which grew 10.24 cm in 10 days. Now, you should have a clear mind on which setup achieved a better result. Prominently, the rate of growth in the experimental setup was higher. You can also look at how many percent they have grown in this 10 days as well. The control setup increased by 50%, while the experimental setup increased by 80.1%. That is fascinating. There could be many limitations that could contribute to the imprecise results. For instance, imbalance light intensity, uncertainty quantity of soil preparation, or even the unprofessional handling of plating mung beans. For example, one of the plants in the experimental setup only grew to 7.9 cm. That is much lower than all the other beans from both pots. Since the experimental setup data appear more disparate than the results from control setup, we might have underestimated the effect of brewed coffee ground on the growth of beans. We could improve it by increasing the sample size of plant seeds. However, we can recognize that the results in this experiment still fit our hypothesis that the coffee ground can boost plants' growth in contrast to plating mung beans with water only. Our finding in this experiment will align with the study by other researchers on plant growth by using coffee ground as fertilizer. According to the study by other researchers, the rate of growth and the net weight gain positively correlate to the supplementation of coffee grounds at a specific concentration. Although the plants used in previous study was not mung beans, the results that coffee ground boost the plant's growth and both study show a positive association between plant growth using coffee grounds as fertilizer. Fundamentally, this could be attributed to the rich nutrients and minerals contained in coffee grounds, such as phosphorus and nitrogen. There is no particularly pronounced plant growth among the seeds like previous study done by other researchers, since we can only observe a slight increase in the tallest one among them. Despite the error found in our experiment, we could still identify that brewed coffee grounds can promote the growth of beans. It turned out not to be a significant concern for growing beans in home environment. Everyone can grow plants at home, no matter if it is for horticultural interest or consumption of organic vegetable. Besides the mung beans, other vegetables would also be feasible for us to grow according to the positive result done in a study by other researchers.
In our experiment, we compared the plant growth rate between the plants watered by water and brewed coffee ground mixture. Surprisingly, the plant fertilized by coffee ground increased by 38.6% on average. As a result, we successfully investigated the effectiveness of coffee ground in boosting mung bean growth. The experiment conducted also aligned with our hypothesis that the nutrients and minerals in coffee grounds, such as nitrogen and phosphorus, can promote the growth of beans as mentioned in previous research done by other researchers as well.